Carl, are you there?
There I am.
There you are. And if you want to help present the Outbound, I'm more than willing to.
Awesome. Okay, so looks like it's just the two of us right now. I've got it up so I can share the screen, or if you want to share the screen and control it, I don't care. But I've got your notes on who does which slide.
I feel like there's a few more people than us.
Oh,
Hi, Anne.
Hi. I didn't know whether I was supposed to go to yours or Dan's.
Of course.
Well, this is the one I shared the slides on, so.
Okay. That's what I figured. So. How's it going?
It's good.
That's good.
So, Anne, does your club host or send exchange students right now?
We host, but the funny thing is, we sponsored a kid from DeForest, but I've been in my club 16 years. We've never sent out a student from Sun Prairie High School.
Wow.
Can you believe it? And we're going to have 2 high schools now. And we haven't sent out, we got close last year. And then, between like them canceling and then the year before we had a kid who signed up and pulled out like last minute because of a family issue. But yeah, we would really like to send somebody out. It just floors me that we can't get anybody to go. But I think we took a break from hosting for a few years. And that I think got kids at the high school not used to having students there. So I think we're building back awareness.
Yeah, I've noticed that there's some clubs at Toma, for example, which I'm working on. They kind of like the model of hosting every other year. And I guess financially that seems to be okay, but the problem is, did we lose her?
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
No. I think we lost her. Oh, maybe she's still visible, actually. The problem, I guess, with hosting every other year is you sort of lose that momentum. You know, like the person comes back from exchange and then meets all their friends that were like the undergrads, you know, from before, and encourages them. You know, so when you do it every other, it kind of hurts and jerks it along the way. So I understand why clubs want to do it every other year, but I like the model of just trying to make it every year to keep that momentum going. So,
we were every other year. Then we had this long break, and then we started doing every year, and it's been, I think, a good thing doing it every year. I know that for a while, I could hear you and not see anything, and then I think
I just figured it out. I think the people that are running this show, they're probably doing a brilliant job, because I'm seeing now that there's 9 people in here. I can't see everybody.
I think there's only 6.
Oh, 6 watching and 3 up here right now. Is that right? Okay. So yeah, I think that's why they did that. And so whoever's behind the scene, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 6, so we can have everyone just have their cameras on if they want.
Right. So hi, everyone. I'm Frances. I am one of the behind the scenes people. So, but I have hosted, I'm a Rotarian, and I have hosted 3 exchange students, and it has been fantastic. And I'd love to get more people into and excited about the program. And I agree with Anne that we have a pretty good, I'm going to put Bob in, see if he wants to join. There we go. Hey, Bob. So we've had a pretty good job at getting people out of Middleton High School. I've got reverb now. But it's surprising that we don't have 3 people at least contending for 1 outbound. I'm like, why are people not? I don't know how to get more people, more kids and families excited about the program, because it's so incredible.
want to say thank you about mentioning the families. That was one of the things when I came in to help be one of the outbound coordinators with, so I'm one of the district outbound coordinators with Tony Pavon and then helping out John Holyvolt, who's coming in. One of the things I learned in doing district trainings or the orientations we do for the kids going out was there were, parents, I think Eva Marie Restel from La Crosse brought it up, of how parents in her community would say, how can you let your kid do that? So this real need to educate and get families on board with knowing that it's a great thing to do when people think that they're being bad parents because they're how can you let your kid go away for a year?
Yeah, because it's the best thing ever. What do you think, Tammy? How long do you want to, should we wait for people or Francis?
Yeah, we're trying to figure out where everybody is because they're still in the event. They're not getting over to the session. So I would say, let's just keep some dialogue going. What you see is the 5 out of 9 is we have 9 positions that we could have people live on the screen. But Tammy was right. There's 6 people. So we do have one person who's listening, but she hasn't.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I mean, we're ahead
as an option.
If you want John on the screen, you can join in until we get going.
Yes, we have John too. He's getting to be the new outbound coordinator.
Okay. John, if you can hear us, if you'll just press your share audio and video in the top right corner, it's a blue button in the top of the black screen that you can see everybody in. Because if we get large, I will leave and just monitor the chat. It doesn't see my mic or camera.
So then when we do the presentation too, like, are you sharing that, Francis, or one of like Carl or I need to share it?
You or Carl are sharing it tonight.
Okay.
Tammy, it's up to you. I've got it up right now.
Yeah, sure. If you want to, because then I'll just have my notes on my screen then too.
Okay.
And I may pop out and see if I can help find why people are.
Although it depends. I mean, Anne's a pro, John's a pro with this, or getting to be. Bob, I think you have some experience with Youth Exchange.
Just a little bit, yeah.
We don't really have
so maybe you guys need to learn more about the STEP program and not the inbound outbound.
Sure, we can talk about that.
Yeah, that's something I'm surprised. I would think Sun Prairie could get some STEP program.
There's John. How you doing, John?
I'm good.
Just give it a couple more minutes, see if you can find a topic. Let's see if we can get some more people in. I'm going to leave you. I'll come back on. I'm going to see if I can't get some more people out of the ether because they're somewhere lost in limbo.
Thanks, Francis.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely ahead of schedule, so there's no reason to rush into the presentation or anything. We've got, all right, we're like still only 10 minutes ahead. So there's Peggy. How you doing, Peggy?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Good. I want to see people from the clubs that honestly aren't doing exchange and are wanting to dig into this, but I'm not seeing that right now.
Well, technically, that's my club. I'm heavily involved in Youth Exchange, but we haven't hosted for 3 years, and there's no interest for our club to do any hosting going forward. So I am the only one in our club involved in Youth Exchange, trying to keep it on the forefront.
Is the issue host families?
Actually, there's been more caring and commitment just to get members who are willing to support and a little bit at a time above and beyond and just the daily stuff.
Do you send outbounds out, or is it just kind of the inbound side that's the issue?
In the last 10 years, I sent 2 outbounds, and that's part of how I jumped back to it. And in addition to outbounds, we did do one step as well. But we had inactive youth program, youth exchange program. They had done it in the past, and they did not to do it for a while. One of our high schoolers reached out and do youth exchange. And I was not going to say no, but because we didn't have the youth exchange officer, so I just made it happen. I had done youth exchange with Rotary before I came to the press, and so I had some background.
And what club were you with, Bob?
La Crescent, Minnesota.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Hear your voice quite often in the Region Youth Exchange Council meetings, Carl, but it's nice to see your face at the conference.
I know. I was just telling my wife's daughter, I was like, I joined Rotary. So I was an exchange student, and then it was like, oh, I'm going to join, Rotary and be the exchange student person. So I joined Rotary in 2019. I very quickly become the club person, and we have an exchange student, and then COVID, haha. So it's like, oh, well, but that's okay. We've done. Tammy can tell you, we've done so much work in these last few months getting set up for 2022 that it's really a matter of promoting it, and part of this breakout is to encourage the existing Rotary clubs to go out and find, recontact with those schools and say, hey, look, we're this is what we want to do, and get our kids interested in going, and then obviously the other way, get clubs interested in hosting as well. So.
Do we have many clubs that have been able to commit?
I don't know about commit. I think it's probably a good question for Jan, but I did run over and look at some of our other information, and I could be wrong on this. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I see, 6250 has 61 clubs about, of which 35 have a youth exchange officer. Now, again, there's a lot of clubs that do sort of the every other year model and that sort of thing, but that just kind of lets you know that like at least half of our clubs in the district aren't doing it at all.
And I will say from the Outbound side of it, we've had about 20-ish go out on the years that we do it, which actually is like from Central States, we're one of the bigger ones sending out from the, the bigger group, but 20 is where we're at. And I know it, we're still working with figuring out whether, it's up to the schools right now to make that decision. And I don't think we'll know for another month or so, probably.
As I say, that's our challenge, is that the school has said no, and I'm not sure they're even interested in trying to make that decision right now, unfortunately, for the 22-23 even right now. They're so, they're just figuring out whether seniors are going to have a graduation and so many other things that it's important for us, but for them, it's hard to nag them too much about it. So I don't know how that's.
And it's so far away, they don't want to commit, I think.
Right. So I'm just worried what that's going to do. Because I know we love hosting as a club and really want to get back, and have had to take the 2 years off. We were going to have to take this year, even if the district, because the school wouldn't take a student for this coming year for 21-22. So I don't know. It's I think, and I know this is new to youth, but I do think that's going to be one of the first hurdles, even in addition to finding host families, is the schools. At least in the cities. At least in the cities. I don't know about others outside of. Go ahead, Tammy.
No, I was going to say, I think the school commitments are going to be the biggest thing. And then there are some additional host family hurdles that we're going to, I think, have to go through. It seems, I think we're going to have kind of a backup host family, just in case something ever happens. So that's a nice, lovely wrinkle. Yeah. It's already hard enough to find host families, and now you have to have a backup on standby.
Well, John,
that's fully vetted and all that stuff.
Well, we got two in Sparta. If Sparta would decide to host, just throwing that out there.
John, you were part of the that planning committee for the emergency stuff.
Tammy, Carl, and I all were. Yeah. So
I know more about crisis management than I ever wanted to.
That's right.
Well, that makes sense with us having students in. But I know, like, I don't know about other people. Does normally in a non-COVID year, does your school limit the number of students that come in? Like, Sun Prairie only has 6, and I think they only let 6 in. So we have to earn our spot if we're going to be in that year. But they usually save one for us. But that was a new thing that we had once we, started looking at hosting every year, was getting the school to say, yes, we're having one every year when they only have their limited number in the district.
Yeah, you probably went through the same thing we did in Middleton, is that there was crowding in the high school. So there was a fixed number. And then before the construction, because there's new getting expanded, they cut it back. And so now the question will also be, when this construction finishes and there's plenty of room, will they expand it back up, or will they leave it limited? So that's kind of unknown. But we have had a long-standing, we were one of the clubs, one of the groups that has had a student in the exchange program for the longest period of time. So hopefully we don't lose a spot.
As far as getting kids out, are there any good ideas on how to promote that? I mean, it doesn't cost anything for the clubs, really.
I don't think it's the cost. I think it's the relationships that you can build up. And it's that's where, to me, if you have an Interact club, but I'm not the expert here, but it would seem that if you have the Interact club, then you have some talk about youth exchange and Rotary, and it's all not brand new to the school, the counselors, the kids, and all that. And so you have a place to go. So that to me is to find the Outbound. We've just been fortunate as a club because we tend to, through Rotarians, through others, find one, but we want to really beef it up. And so it seems like getting back into the school with counselors and talking about Rotary is one of our first steps, is revisiting that. And there's been so much turnover with COVID in the schools too. That's what's also challenging, is we thought we knew, and then, people haven't come back, people have retirements, all kinds of stuff are happening. It just seems there's just a lot of change. So that's us.
I think that's a very good point about Interact being a good feed. I could tell you from Ullman's experience talking to them, they had a drought of 5 years that they did not sound any Outbounds. And then they started an Interact club. And since then, there's been an average of 3 per year between long-term and depth that are interested in going outbound. And it really just drastically changed that community's perspective on the exchange program. It is through Interact.
Tammy, I have a question for you about the alternative host family, and maybe I should know the answer to this, but it cannot be YEO or YEC cannot serve in that, or they can.
They cannot.
They cannot.
Yeah,
Because
that may be
they can't host ever, right? I mean, that's basically okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can't be a host family. Yeah.
That worries me about you transitioning if you do for our club, John.
Well, so here's a weak one, because I'm the YEC for the Toma Club. So let's pretend Sparta ever decided to host an exchange student. Theoretically, I could be a host family for Sparta because they would have their own YEO and YEC, and I could still remain the YEC for Toma. I just can't be the YEC or YEO or YPO for the same student that I'm hosting.
Yeah, they want some kind of separation. So if there are issues, you're not investigating yourself, basically.
Right. That's what I assume.
I think sometimes they can be like an emergency placement for like a day or something, but not, I think, what the backup is supposed to be. Because the backup could be someone, that's up to like 2 weeks, quarantine period. So that's a little longer than just a one night emergency situation.
Do any of you have relationships like Lorley was talking about with other clubs? Do you go together with other clubs to manage youth programs and exchange students?
So I'm the treasurer of the Cooley Community Council that Laura was talking about. Carl's a member with that. So we're part of the group.
So no, I'm in the Madison area, so no, not that I'm aware of, we don't have anything. I think a lot of us are on the district team, so we kind of work informally together to, you know, for rides and stuff like that to district events. But nothing really formal. And I feel like lacrosse has tried to get us to do something like that in Madison, and it just
That's a shame.
has not really taken
It
hold.
seems like we could at least do East and West or something, you know, at least or something in Madison with, anyway.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because you know, like Madison downtown they'll do a number, almost like 3 or something students. And so it almost seems like that would lend itself to us doing more of a lacrosse model because they are sponsoring more. But I know you do more interviews together and more things than that. And I think overall we haven't been as coordinated as that area, even though you'd think we could be. I feel like I get more interaction with Columbus and Beaver Dam and some of the ones that have to come down 151 than I do with the internal Madison.
Yeah, our outbound interview process started years as a group before we actually formed a formal group. So we've been doing joint interviews for I'm going to say decades. So we advertise in the local paper. All the clubs come together for interviews. And then after the interviews, we basically just sit around as a group and say, okay, who's taking this student and improving them with their club. A lot of times it's physical geography. If they live in Alaska, it's probably going to be either on Alaska or value sponsoring them. But it's just where the relationship is with individuals and the club. But it gives a central point for the information. It's common information. It's a great place for parents to have questions, and we're all working together on that together.
I like that idea too, though, because there's not preference. Like sometimes I feel like if we're only interviewing people, kids and families that are in our school district or that we may know, that I'm not sure we interview quite as diligently and thoroughly to really vet the student, because it is a big freaking deal. I mean, I think it's a great program, but these kids need to know, and the families need to know. It's not always, I think they all can turn out good, but it's not always easy. And it's not without some challenges at times, right? We have stories, everyone's got one. And so it can be a tough family or where you're staying. It can be all kinds of things the students go through. Some of these are not. So anyway, I just think really making sure you interview the people, the kids going and the families. I shouldn't call them kids. That's why I was stumbling. The young adults. Yeah, and so having an impartial panel like that would be kind of nice. That was my point.
I have found that I think they come to the district interview more prepared, and we get maybe better paperwork turned in from that area because they're more involved in the beginning. Because that would be my ask of any club, is help your student with the paperwork. You know, be there for them to sign those forms, and and help them do the minutia. Because the parents at that point and the students just kind of get lost for the outbounds going out, and we get overwhelmed. And then we're spending the night before, we have to hand them into Tammy's mom, like rushing and trying to get stuff overnighted, which isn't good.
Yeah, that's a process, the outbound application. And I'm sure with COVID, who knows if things are going to change and just it's going to get added to it. So
yeah, it'll be another vaccination maybe to list on the list, but we don't know yet. But probably.
yeah.
That's going to end up varying by country, which is going to be really nightmare to manage, right? That's going to be the hard part is the requirements and what opens up by when, I think is going to be one of the, personally, I just think that's going to be one thing.
I feel like the feedback I'm getting right now though is really the idea of multiple clubs working together. So even if you've got, sort of that on again, off again club, or if you have multiple clubs in a city, they're able to work together and kind of do, informally just amongst the clubs, do a rotation so that, there's sort of some consistency there. You've got enough people that are seasoned in the exchange to get the applications filled out right and those sort of things. And it's, Toma's sort of the tail edge of, but we've been wrapped into the Cooley region, which has been amazing, not only for, helping interview exchange students and those sort of things, but also in terms of, just events where we can get the exchange students together to hang out together. Because I'm telling you from experience, when you're an exchange student, it's kind of nice to go see your fellow exchange students every now and then.
Well, I think if you don't manage that for them, I know in Madison, we've had some of that where they get together, and sometimes it'd be a little better maybe if we manage their getting together than them getting together on their own.
Sometimes there was the one year it was a little much.
That was one of
They
my
got together
years.
a little too much.
Anyway, I do like the idea, Carl. Maybe maybe you guys just could outline some of the first things. Like it was interesting to talk about because I am YEC, so YEO. So I should know it, right? Sorry. So I can't be emergency.
Starts with YE.
Yeah, I can't be backup, which I knew but had forgotten. But I could be for another club, and so there's clubs right around me that just putting it out to them to let them know that our club might have families that would be willing to be backups in terms of, because I'm sure my YEC would also be a backup for another club.
Tammy, is your club?
Oh, that's an idea. I wonder if that's maybe how we kind of.
If you could even start that way,
maybe
right?
what we need to do,
just to start building the connections and having that as just a starting point. So just I'm always about what are the baby steps instead of trying to take on the whole thing, but how do you just get baby steps started so you start the conversations?
Tammy, is your club every year or every other year?
We do every year.
We're every other.
Okay. So like you guys, like a clubs that are every other year, it might be helpful to have somebody as a backup that's not doing that year. But maybe we could get like our small groups. It wouldn't have to be the whole Madison area, but maybe you get like group 6 and group or the other, because we're group 6 and I don't know what other ones in the Madison area are, but you get like 2 of the Madison area groups and start out that way. I don't know.
No, I think that would be good. And then, I mean, it doesn't even have to be people in the club. Like if you have another host family that would be willing just to be added as like the backup, just in case. Because I don't know for the backup if you need all like that school district kind of requirements that you need, for the other host families.
Where we are, we could be close enough that we could still get them to the same high school. Part of what would be nice, because Middleton and Memorial, and so there's West Town Madison and we're Sunrise. There's enough of us that we're close enough, and the high schools are close enough that I think you could keep the kid at the same high school, even if you had to have a different emergency backup.
Well, and I know there's a lot of Rotarians too. That, I mean, my example is when I live in Sparta, I work in Toma. On my way out of Sparta, I passed by the location where the Sparta Rotary meets. So, I mean, if they had a Sparta exchange student, and I live, was it like 8 blocks that way or something, is the high school. I mean, I'm uniquely situated where I could totally host or be the backup or whatever if Sparta were to, host, and I could still maintain my position over in Toma, which is where I am, a Rotarian. And I think there's a lot of Rotarians that do that. They're sort of live in one community and work in another community, in which case, but again, it's all about those connections, about, trying to get Rotarians from one club to go talk to the other club. And I'm kind of, in the course of this discussion, I'm thinking, I should, as a district level sort of person be out there trying to drop in on a lot of these clubs and tell them, hey, you know, the club next to you is hosting. Why don't you talk to them? And you know, guys, maybe you can work out a system where you're hosting one year, they're hosting the other year, that kind of thing. I think there's a lot of benefit, a lot of good things that can come out of that.
Carl, with like the Cooley region, like how often do you guys like meet on a regular basis?
I don't make all the meetings. They're usually phone call meetings for me because I'm remote. They were meeting in person, but I was always phone calling in. But yeah, they do. I don't think it was monthly, but it was pretty regular.
Every other month. Every other month.
Every other month. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, so it was pretty regular, and you know they'd not only discuss obviously talking, who's talking to the schools, who's making sure that information's out there for the recruiting and all those sort of things. They do a group interview so that all the kids in the area could come and just get interviewed by 3 or 4 people all at one shot, and you got more eyes looking at the students to try to get the best candidates. And then throughout the exchange year, then you're also doing events where you're bringing the students together, not only just to let them hang out together, but also to raise money to help them on their end of the year trip. So it really is a good deal to have them all wrapped in there. And I guess our presentation sort of we can email them out later, but it's kind of,
I mean, yeah,
this is a great discussion. I think the idea that clubs that are active, that are next to clubs that aren't active, them reaching out and saying, hey, are you interested? We can assist you and get you going into this. I think is a great idea.
well, I think even just starting to utilize them maybe as a backup, like, do you have anyone who'd be willing to be a backup? Yeah. And just starting to get them kind of like in that process might be good.
And step, there's always step.
There is always, like, I like step.
I mean, do you think that we've always had that conversation of whether, and I think maybe in Sun Prairie, it's 2 different types of kids, I really think. But I think step can lead to a long-term exchange. I know we've had at least one in the last time we sent them out. She did step first and then decided, yeah, I really want to do the year. So I think learning, like doing an education program out to teach more schools that step is out there, it might be a good thing.
I think a lot of the key to success is working with the schools directly. They're the ones really getting the messages of availability to the students. I know in the La Crosse schools, they do a really good job. I can tell you in the La Crescent schools, we are pulling teeth to get information in front of the students. We'll get it in front of the counselors and the teachers and stuff like that. And then I'll talk to actual students and said, yeah, we've heard of nothing. And so it's that partnership with the schools that will really help with the success if you're looking at trying to invigorate the outbound, especially.
Do we have marketing materials around it all? I don't even know that are geared toward helping clubs reach those counselors.
Yeah, we've actually developed a pamphlet at the La Crosse level that we hand out to all the schools, and we've actually developed it in a way that it can be modified for any of the clubs in the district. So
another question I have is because our club has I don't remember what the membership name is, but like there's certain memberships that can go to certain key positions in the community, like a high school principal or the sheriff, or
a corporate membership type thing.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Are we getting the school members to come to our Rotary meetings as well? Our YEO is the principal of the elementary school, and one of our members is the Toma district to school district, whatever you call it, boss. What? Say that again.
That's superintendent.
Yes, thank you. This is the superintendent. So obviously they're there and they're able. So, me as the exchange student guy, if I'm like, hey, this is what's going on, let's get stuff going, he can direct me to where I need to go, and he can help put that messaging in the school. Because you're right, part of being a YEO, in addition to checking the home and doing interviews, is getting out in those schools and talking to those principals and talking to those counselors, and if there's an Interact Club, our Interact Club person in Toma is one of our Rotary members, so we've got a good tie-in with the schools, so we can feed them that information. And I wonder how many other schools do that.
Well, our school does have a corporate membership. The superintendent's a member, as well as the assistant principal at the high school. Unfortunately, both of them are relatively inactive. So I'll see them at 2 or 3 meetings a year, and they're really, when they signed up for it, they actually signed up the counselor as well. And we found out a year later that the counselor didn't even know that they had become a Rotarian because nobody from the school told them. So it can be a communication problem too.
We've kind of had a funny thing where we had a really involved superintendent who was a really active Rotarian. Then it switched to, we went to a corporate membership, and now the chief financial officer, we always get somebody from the school district to show up. Our superintendent is kind of not, in touch, but we do get somebody in there. So I think we've had a good reception, I think, with our school overall. But, just making a solid connection with the school, like we just can't get an Interact started again. We had one several years ago and then it died, and we've tried to bring it back and that just hasn't happened. So we don't have that avenue in as youth exchange either, but we do at least get some presence with the schools, and they know. So I keep teasing them that we can have 2 now because we have 2 high schools, and things like that. But it will be an interesting thing for us. Will we do 1 year at one high school, 1 year at the other high school? We only have 1 club. So, I think we're maybe ripe for hoping and reaching out to possibly other places on the east side of Madison and other clubs, because we'll have another school. So it sounds like at least a group 6 should get together, which is our small group of like 7 clubs, to talk about maybe trying to get a youth exchange group going. I know DeForest sends people out but never hosts. It's kind of interesting, and we never send people out and always.
A couple years ago, after we formed, a number of Madison Youth Exchange officers got together and just asked for some advice. We just had a nice informal meeting of kind of what we do and how we do it. We'll be glad to do it again if you want to get people to.
And we might want to do that. I know then we have Lodi, which does everything. So group 6 is very interesting.
Yeah, they're like pros in it basically. So
we need to get them in here to tell us what they're up to.
they've just been doing it for so many years.
I do think they have a good, like you said too, I think they have a good school connection. I mean,
no, I think they do. I mean, they're small, so yeah, they have I think a really good school connection.
Getting the superintendent and stuff, we've made those offers, and I feel like because there are multiple clubs that could feed into our high school, they have chosen not to want to have to pick a club. At least that's their excuse. So I don't know.
Or
they don't want to pick a Rotary club because there's more than one club that they could choose.
Yeah, that's a great reason to get the clubs together and sort of have a single point of contact. And then as a Rotary club, you guys can divvy up the exchange students. Yeah. I keep thinking all politics is local. Every superintendent's different. Every situation's different. Every, how many clubs per schools is different. So it's kind of up to the clubs to say, hey, I'm interested in this. This is what I've got to work with. Let's go do it this way. So that's kind of what I'm thinking.
La Crosse has 3 high schools, and depending on where the host families are, that's how we kind of determine which school that they'll attend. It has nothing to do with which club is hosting. It's the demographics of where the host families are, just in what part of town.
Yeah, I love it. Thinking outside the box. I love it.
And we don't draw formal lines on that. The requirements that we talk to for host family is that they have to be able to reasonably be able to accommodate travel to that school. So they may be on the north side of Onalaska and they're going to Central, and it's a 15-minute drive instead of normally a 5-minute drive. But
Well, now
it's still reasonable
because of that stupid speed limit on Losey.
Yep.
But you know.
That's true. That's true. But it would be hard for somebody like in West Salem hosting a Toma exchange student.
Sure.
But we've had West Salem families hosting Onalaska students. Just like the backup family was in West Salem, I know, for one of the clubs, and they needed to go there at some point. And while it was technically outside the district, it still was close enough that they could accommodate.
Do you then just use Rotary? Like, how do you use, what address do you give the school district so they don't get upset as far as the students' address?
The districts usually don't get upset. It's something that we'll talk about ahead of time. And so,
because I know we've had some pushback depending on who's in the district office on that.
You know, it's a good point though, because now that I think about it, I mean, when I was in Denmark, I went to school in one town. I lived in the town south of it for half a year and the town north of it half a year. I never actually lived in the town I went to school. I don't know if there was another high school in those other schools, but it's kind of like, if people are willing to accommodate, why would we cut them off because of some arbitrary, you know, school map taxation line? Like it's kind of ridiculous.
So are we still looking, what are we looking at for STEP? When are we considering having short-term exchange? Next summer?
So I think the short answer is Rotary International has said, Tammy can help me with this, but I think that there is no exchange until July 1st of 2022.
Okay.
So that means we are planning to start promoting STEP in the fall with applicants being able to apply through, February or March of 2022 then for that summer. It would probably be a slightly shortened, sort of a three-week thing, depending on the school year and how those sort of timelines work out. But we're tentatively looking at that as our timeline and then the long-term rolling into that school year. Tammy, do you know anything different?
No, I mean, yeah, it's not till the 22-23 year. But I think, is there supposed to be something coming out this June too that Rotary International was going to talk? And maybe decide for the next Rotary year? I forget what it is.
Well, 22 is our next, because I mean, for long-term exchange,
yeah,
in 4 or 5 months.
So, I mean, I feel like we're going to need to know this summer, by the end of the summer, if we can even have exchanges starting the next,
because
in 2022.
We open up applications usually in August. As far as.
Yeah, I mean, and we start getting inbounds usually January, February.
Yeah, so really the trick at this point, certainly for the long-term exchange, is trying to get the sophomores and juniors this year interested for, not 21, 22, but for the next year after that. Sophomores now, so their senior year, they're gone. That's where the marketing needs to be looking at, and we're still kind of like, are we virtual, or are we in class, are we part-time, or are we full-time? So there's all that kind of jerky stuff, and I know definitely in Toma we need to get back in there and start saying again, hey, look, this is our plan. Hopefully that's our target.
Yeah.
All things still up in the air, but that's sort of the timeline. Is right now we need to be promoting for the sophomores for the senior year.
So what are you guys doing to keep your clubs interested in doing youth exchange when it's such a long drought period here? Because I know that's part of what we're going through and it's not just the club, it's host families, and like we're talking about getting to the schools, but it's still the communities and stuff too. It just, this drought period, I know everybody knows stuff is going on, but I feel like we're losing a lot of momentum.
I know that was the heart of Laura's presentation tonight in her room. So that may be something that we can get some more answers from afterwards.
Yeah.
I know in the area, a lot of what we've done is encouraged our clubs to reach out to your past exchange students, and with Zoom, have them be the program. We've had more than one program in the area where it's former exchange students coming back and updating clubs with their life stories, what's happened in the last 5 years, 10 years. And we've even, we had one of our former exchange students from 30 years ago come back as one of the programs. And so it's reaching back that far and being able to have that conversation just to keep the youth conversation alive. It's probably one of the best ways to do it. And Zoom opens up that opportunity.
Yeah. We did that and asked them to explain how their lives have been impacted by COVID so that we could have some comparisons to ourselves.
Yeah, I think that is a really good, I think that is a great way to keep the clubs engaged. And I do worry about like picking interest back up overall with people wanting to go out and, you know, and then limits on what countries and when. And so I think we'll have some work to do trying to get the word back out overall. But really, you're right. The students that have gone on exchange, people like Carl, you know, and the students that we can connect to that we keep still. I mean, how many? I have lots of students that I still keep in contact with, even though I haven't hosted for a long, long time. But you know, that's kind of what keeps things going. I think is those connections. But having people, even getting some of our kids that went out to come back would be really good.
And I'm loud and I don't care. So if anybody wants to have me speak, that would be fine.
Well, John's the one too, so you're a former.
Yeah, she's one too. And the former step coordinator was actually an exchange student to Japan, which I find exceptionally fascinating. She'd probably be willing to do that sort of thing too. Yeah. Yeah, I think it kind of behooves us as active clubs or, you know, kind of in the mix to, you know, kind of kick out and say, hey, to the other clubs, hey, you know, are you interested in helping at least? You know, you don't have to be the person, you don't have to, but can you help? Can you find a family that'd be willing to back up?
And if nothing else, the thing I've mentioned to Jan to talk to the district about is keeping up the communication, not with just the clubs that are actively hosting. There's a lot of clubs that will host every other year. And if this is not a year you're hosting, you're not on the mailing list of any of the updates of what's going on. So in the years that we were, La Crescent was on and off for a number of years, really the only way I stayed in touch was reaching out to Jack Hazy downtown La Crosse and say, what do I need to know? Because we're out of the loop this year, but then next year we'll be back in it. So let us know what's going on, even if you're not actively hosting a student.
I think that's a great note for both Tammy and I. I've sent one email to all the current presidents because, you know, we get the current presidents list, and I sent it to everybody and said, hey, here's what's going on with STEP. Of course, that was months ago, and you know, it's not happening again. But the idea that at the district level, you know, trying to ping every single Rotary club and say, hey, look, here's what's going on with Exchange. If you're interested, give us a holler. We'll help you out.
But maybe even, Carl, do the president nominees, because they're the ones who are it's going to be in their year. And just talking now about thinking about it so that you can set goals. Because if you wait to think about it till you're setting your goals for your year, you're going to be too late. So if you try and pull them in and then talk to them about their YEO, now would be to me, and I think you have most of those names. So
I think you're right, because I'm a president-elect going in, and I basically had to put my goals in
right
just
now.
this month.
Yeah.
Right now.
I better hurry up and email some people.
What I'm talking about, get the nominees for the 22-23, the president-elect nominees for 22-23, and put this out in front of them so that's in their head, because that is going to be the first year we can do it. and it'll be an important initiative for any clubs that are really interested. But they can't wait till June or July to be focusing on it.
Right.
I can tell you it's going to be a challenge at the district level. There are clubs that don't let them even know who the president-elect nominee is until like June or just before Pets. So getting that information up to districts so that district can get that information out to members is important too. So I'm an advocate of the district level, sending it out to always current presidents because that you have that list, and then adding in those that you can. So add in the youth exchange officers listed for all the clubs, add in the president-elect nominees and the president-elects, so that even if it's not getting directly to that person, maybe it gets to the president-elect and they say, oh, we just picked the nominee, I'll hand this off to them so they have it. So it's better to communicate to more people than fewer, in my opinion.
Yeah. Tammy, I think we should get together on that and figure out.
No, yeah.
Well, I wish more people would have shown
Yeah.
up for this this presentation. I can tell you because I am the background. You didn't do it. That we were recording, so we do have 15 minutes. If you want to do your presentation, because this is being recorded, we can then might be able to figure out, or we're looking at how we can take all this and we could make it a presentation you could then use in other places besides just here. So because it's 8:16, I don't know how long your presentation is, but I'm willing to stay on as if others. We can leave the screen, we can stay. You would have more visibility to share your screen if some of us leave.
Yeah, I'd say cut it back to Carl and Tammy and do what you planned on doing. I'd love it.
Great, man. I thought I got through this.
Maybe I can pull it up here. I think I can.
Wait, are we having John or Ann jump in at the outbound side?
That's up to them. Are you still there?
I am, or John, and I think John or Ann.
John's on, Ann's not, so we'll let John, and Ann said John can do it. So John, you want to stay in the panel and it'll be the three of you. I'm going to leave again. And so if you need to ask me a question, you won't hear me. So you need, if you put it in chat. Okay. Otherwise,
I mean, John, it's basically the same what I shared with you. I added a slide, but I feel like based on my points, you should be able to discuss.
All right, I'm going to leave and let you take.
And I'm in control of the board. I'll go ahead and start, and then when it's Tammy, the times that you said turn it over to you, I'll turn it over to you. You can turn it over to John. Yeah, we'll definitely do this so that if anybody wants to hear this after the fact, they can look at this. Why do we want to do new youth exchange? Bottom line, Rotary Youth Exchange builds peace one person at a time. One person at a time is having that eureka moment and getting an opportunity that they would never, ever get in their lifetime. That's what we're doing. What is youth exchange? Obviously, it's an opportunity to go learn a new culture. It's an opportunity to go learn a new language, but it's also that opportunity to go be an ambassador, to be a representative of your country. And that's one of those experiences that you just can't get in the majority of places. And it's a year or in a summer adventure. If you're doing the long-term exchange, either inbound or outbound, you're 10 to 11 months in another country with other students going to school in that other country. And then, of course, we have the short-term exchange, which is a summer exchange. That's what it is. Rotary's been doing it a long time. How long? We've been doing it since 1927 unofficially. Rotary Youth Exchange started in Denmark in 1927. The clubs there decided to start doing some exchanges that expanded. And then in 1958, Rotary International had a meeting and decided that this was a great thing and they wanted to start doing it. I think that first exchange was between students from Nebraska and Japan, if I remember correctly. And then just sort of a side note, because I think it's cute, Matthew McConaughey was actually a Rotary Exchange student. So if anybody is familiar with him from the movies or the, Lincoln commercials. But yeah, he went to Australia for a year. Tammy, go for it.
All right, so there are 3 positions that every club that participates in Youth Exchange must have. The first one is the Youth Exchange Officer, or the YEO. So this is the person who will be the primary contact for Youth Exchange at the club level. The YEO will most likely be the person to make contact with the school and perform the first host family interview. They'll also be expected to help in the instances of any issues that arise with the student, host family, schools, etc. And then next we have the Youth Exchange Counselor, or the YEC. So this person is expected to develop a relationship with the student and maintain monthly contact with the student and the host families. In the event any issues arise, the YEC is expected to act as an advocate for the student. And then we have the Youth Protection Officer, the YPO. This person is expected to train club members on the topic of youth protection, and then would be a resource and participant in certain, if certain events arise, they can help the club and the student and others kind of work through that situation. So there are 3 youth exchange programs within our district: the inbound, outbound, and then the short-term STEP programs. So next we'll kind of go over and next we'll go through and give an overview of each of these different programs. So first we're going to start with the inbound youth exchange. So this is when a student from another country is hosted by a club within our district. Exchanges are typically 11 to 12 months. Summer exchanges are the most typical and usually run from August through July or August of the following year. Winter exchanges are less common, but we have had one during each of the last 2 exchange years in our district. And these exchanges run from January through December or early January of the following year. Our district typically hosts between 20 to 25 inbound students each year, and the students come from on average between 15 to different countries. Most clubs only host 1 exchange student each year, but there have been times in which a club will host 2 students. This is kind of more likely if they have both a summer and a winter exchange. So we do vary between 20 and 25 clubs who are hosting a student each year. So the cost for the club, there is an initial $525 fee that is due at the time of the club commitment. And this is usually in June, July of the year preceding the exchange. So for exchanges beginning in summer of 2022, we will be looking to obtain commitments from clubs this upcoming summer of 2021. Clubs will need to find and vet 2 to 3 host families for the student. They'll need to provide a monthly allowance. The current minimum amount for the allowance is $75 a month, but some clubs do provide more to the student. It's kind of all a preference. Clubs must also provide the student with a phone and local phone number and phone service. It doesn't have to be internet service, but with data, but I mean, it's pretty typical. Most clubs usually will have kind of one phone that they'll just kind of move from student to student each year. And then sometimes clubs will just, a member will just add that line to an existing plan. So clubs must also cover school lunches and any school fees, and will also need to cover any district event costs for the student. In addition, there are some reporting requirements for the hosting club. Monthly reports are required to provide the district with a status and update of how the student is doing at school. And then also the club needs to maintain contact with the host family and just kind of get an idea of how the student's doing in their exchange, and just kind of monitoring to make sure everything's going okay. Follow-up visitation reports are also required for each host family after the student has been staying with them for 1 to 2 months. Throughout the year, we also do have some district events that the student will be required to attend. We hold an orientation weekend to get to know the students and to go over all the rules that they must follow during their exchange year. This weekend is typically held during the first or second weekend in September. And then we typically try to have 2 other weekends during the year with all of the inbound and outbound exchange students. In the past few years, we've had a weekend in December in La Crosse, and then a weekend in February in Madison. However, these dates and locations are not set in stone, and we're always looking for other clubs to help organize and host the exchange students for the weekend. The last two events are District Conference in Grand Rapids. So Grand Rapids is usually held in early to mid-July and involves usually over 200 exchange students. So it'll be inbound students at the end of their exchanges, outbound students getting ready to go out on exchange, and then some rebound students who are just returning to the US after a year on exchange. So next we have the Outbound Exchange Program. So John will discuss that. Hope you're on mute. I think you're still on mute, John.
I mean, if you want to just go ahead and brief these next ones then.
Is it coming back in? Okay, well, I'll just start with the timeline. So next we have the Outbound Exchange Program. So these students are you going to go ahead, Ann?
Am I on mute? No, I am. Okay, yeah, I had to put my speaker down, but yes. So we have the Outbound Exchange Program, and that is, once again, it's a year commitment, just like it's the same schedule pretty much that your students have for inbounds. The students generally leave sometime in August or July, and it is, again, it's a summer, and we do have winter outbounds. We did have a winter exchange outbound this last time we had outbounds. We generally get between 15 to 20 students and somewhere around 40 different countries. With and you know, clubs can sponsor multiple students. We have about 15 clubs, with some students, some clubs sending out more than one outbound. There's no cost to the club for sending an outbound, although there is a flat fee for the student, which I think the flat fee now is set to be $5,000, and that the student pays that in installments. But really, the outbound students, it's really a life-changing experience for them, and it's relatively an easy thing for your club to do. The big thing for clubs to do is support your student while you're out, do interviews ahead of time. There is a district, so what will happen is in August, we'll start collecting students' applications and interest. The students have to be 15 and a half to go out, and to 18. And so anyone in that range would send them in. Then there is an online application and some pretty heavy paperwork. So the best thing to do is we really ask the clubs to meet your students, interview the students and the parents ahead of time, get a feel for whether this is something that you feel this student can really handle going out for that time, and whether it's not the parents' idea and the kids are forced, because those exchanges don't usually work well. But go and meet your students and stay involved with them as they go through the paperwork process, because the application is pretty detailed. They will have to get references from a school teacher, and it's all through an online portal that we use with Central States. But really, that's the heaviest part of the club involvement with those, is getting the interest from those students, and then following up with getting them to, they have a district interview after you do your club interview. The district interviews are usually in the early part of November, and the paperwork is due by the end of November, just after Thanksgiving. And yes, as you can see now, the other things that students have to do is they are asked to do a number of assignments for the district team, kind of giving them an idea of meeting their own club, finding out what Rotary is, and learning more about where they're going, and they eventually have to prepare a presentation that they will give in their country, and you as the host club would have them give you that presentation and give them critiques. And then we usually ask that they have come back to the clubs after they're done with exchange. So yes, and this is really the timeline. There are interviews, club interviews would be early in like August when the kids are doing their paperwork. The winter weekend is the same winter weekend that they've been having in lacrosse in December. And that session they get to be with the inbound students that are here. Sometimes, usually now with the schedule that we've been doing, they don't know their countries yet. Countries get announced usually in January. So the students will find out what country they're going to, and that's when it's really good. That spring weekend, they'll be able to connect with any student that's here from the country they're going to. And the whole process is getting them more used to being away from home, because some kids, it may be their first long extended period away from home and meeting different people. So the spring weekend's important. Then there's an orientation that usually happens in Baraboo. We've been doing them, but it's a weekend orientation where we meet with the students and the parents, and we really get them more prepared with what they have to be ready for, and thinking more about, like, we introduce them more to Rotary, and then also more to things like Culture Shock and other things. And then comes the big, they'll also go to district conference where they'll meet more Rotarians and have to get used to being with Rotarians in a formal setting, which they'll have to do in their country. And then the last thing is the Grand Rapids weekend again in July, where they're with all of the inbound students who are going home. They're with kids who are coming back from their exchange. And that's a really intense week of getting them ready to go and getting the parents ready to expect what to expect in those last little, like, really getting them ready to go out and be prepared. So the program's like a 3-year program. They start in with the applications the first year. We get them orientations and trainings. They go out for the next year, and then they come back. And then they come back and they we have been starting to form a group for them of kids that what they call Rotex, but they come back and kind of meet with other exchange students, and we are working on, as a district, getting more of that rebound, what we call a rebound, kind of transition back to being back, and how they can come back to your Rotary clubs and stay connected with Rotary. And that's pretty much the Outbound exchange.
All right, thank you, Ann. Want to take a couple seconds to talk about short-term exchange now. Basically, what is short-term exchange? Well, what it is it's a family-to-family exchange. So, with the long-term exchange, any student can get involved and just, send a student, as long as there's sort of a net one-to-one throughout the district. We work that out within the district. With the short-term exchange, it's a family to family. So if parents and a student here in the United States are linked up with a parent and a student overseas, our student goes over there for a month, their student comes over here for a month. So it's a different kind of exchange. There's a couple other things that we consider because of that difference. But what it really does is, by having that difference in the summer, is it allows a lot of our students that maybe wouldn't be able to go on long-term exchange be able to still experience a different culture and get to learn somebody overseas. Currently in the STEP program here in 6250, we have 10 countries that we work with. That number does fluctuate a little bit, but we got 10 countries. And up until obviously last year, we've been averaging about 10 to 15 students every year. So we're definitely busy in the STEP program, and we definitely want to continue forward with this in the future. So that was sort of the what. The why is, well, it's an opportunity. Again, like I said, it's an opportunity for students that can't do a one-year exchange. They've either got academic goals or sports goals, or maybe they're not sure if they want to be a long-term exchange student, or they're already graduated from high school and now it's that sort of, they got the summer before college. We can accommodate them in the STEP program. We don't compete with the long-term exchange. Quite frankly, the opposite. We've actually had STEP students that were STEP exchange students and then later became long-term exchange students. They liked what they saw, they enjoyed it, and then they went on the long-term exchange later. So there's no conflict, and there's definitely no reason why a student couldn't do both if they decided that they want to. And then this last bullet point, because we're in the new to youth exchange breakout here, clubs with no previous experience. If you're a club and you want to step your toes in the water and see if there's an opportunity for you to work on doing exchange, this is an excellent opportunity. It's a 1-month commitment. You don't have any money that you have to put in. Some clubs do put in some money. We'll talk about the money here in a minute, but you don't have to. And all you basically have to have is a YEO, YEC, and a YPO. Those 3 positions that Tammy talked about earlier. So that was the what, the why, and now it's the how. The how is the student or the club if they decide to help them out. But the student pays a $250 flat fee that helps us cover our expenses in terms of the health insurance and the other things that we've got to get going. They also have to pay for their flight to the host country, and then whatever spending money they want. So it's a very low impact system, and I know that there's a lot of clubs and there's a lot of regional group clubs that have gotten together, like the Cooley region, that have made it available where they've helped out with a lot of those expenses as well. Again, I already said though they have to have a YEO, YC, and a YPO, and then right now, again, the pandemic shut everything down. Rotary International is telling us that as of July 2022, that's their target for when we're going to be able to start exchanges back up. So at this moment, we're going into the school year 21-22 this summer. This fall and into the next year is when we're going to start looking for student applications for the 22 summer year. So it's starting to come again. Hopefully, if everything works out well. Tammy, did you want to talk this one?
Take it. So then support from the district. What can the district do for you? So we do have the district chair and the various coordinators for each of the programs that are here to help provide support and help deal with any issues that may arise during the exchange year, or just to provide guidance and assistance and information, leading up to an exchange year. We do have the crisis management plan that has been put together for the district and provides guidance on what to do if certain situations arise. The district also provides training to all YEOs, YECs, and YPOs. This training goes more in depth on the requirements and timelines of each of the exchange programs and is held at least once a year, sometimes twice a year. And this is also a good opportunity to meet some of the other YEOs, YECs, YPOs, and discuss any issues or best practices for clubs and for their exchanges. And then finally, there are the supervised activities that we've discussed that are put on and organized either by the district or other clubs within the district that a lot of the district staff, we help chaperone the students. Yeah, so that's basically it. I think we got some pictures, and Carl, I don't know if you have anything to wrap up. So these are some pictures from the last time we had Inbound, our Inbound orientation weekend. It seems like so long ago now.
And I see both Bill and Tammy in that picture on the left. So Bill, glad to have you here. And so this is the Find Bill and Tammy picture, which is fun. And then let's see if I can do it. And then this is Find the Carl picture. Again, I just, if I can put an exclamation point on all of this, I think nothing says it better than the fact that I was an exchange student, and I'm also a combat veteran, and I honestly can say that both are life-changing events, but Rotary Youth Exchange has definitely impacted my life as much as the other. I think it's a fantastic opportunity. And if anybody can find my picture in there, I guess, I don't know, I'll buy you a cookie the next time we meet. So, Bill, I see you on the chat. Did you have anything to wrap up before we get out of here? Bill said, have a great night. Thank you guys for attending. I'm going to hang out for a couple more minutes if anybody has any questions or anything afterwards. Otherwise, it was an excellent discussion prior to the presentation. Tammy and I were taking notes furiously. And thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thank you. Thank you, Ann and John, for your help. Everyone for their discussion.
Just us. We'll see you tomorrow.
Great job. So I think we'll
Thanks,
wrap that
Carl.
up.
Yep, thank you.
Have a good night, you guys.
You too.
Good night. Bye.
Bye-bye.